passing by.
What is up, YouTube? This is Nanashi with a brand new deck profile video. This time I'll be going back and showing you the changes and updates to my Spirit deck. If you recall from my last profile, you'll remember that I mentioned the possibility of me selling this deck. Well, I ended up not selling it, and I'm kind of grateful for that, because the second I agreed to sell it to him, it turned out we had a new Spirit monster confirmed. And I really wanted to see what it did and how it worked. And this Spirit monster that we just got helps this deck in a way I never expected it to. So let's see where this goes. Starting with the monster lineup, we have a pair of the new monster, Amano Iwato. As I'm sure you're aware by now, all spirits share a common effect. They can only be summoned in certain ways, most of them being normal, and if they are summoned or flip face up, then during the end phase of the turn that happened, as long as they're still on the field, they return to the owner's hand. As long as it's faced up on the field, the only monster effects that can be activated are the effects of spirit monsters. And yes, this does include monsters in the hand, so hand traps have no playability while this guy's out. We also have a pair of Chenault Crane. While it's faced up on the field, if you were to summon a spirit monster, you get to draw a card. And that's a soft once per turn, so an additional copy means an additional draw. Then we have the Izanami, or I'm a Nazi if you read her name backwards. When she's summoned, you have the ability to drop a card from your hand to add any spirit monster from your grave back to your hand. There's also a playset of Aratama. When it's normal summoned, you get to add any spirit monster from your deck to your hand. And then there's Nikitama at 3. When it's summoned, you get the additional normal summon of a spirit monster during this turn, but you can only gain that additional summon once in the turn. And if it goes to the graveyard from anywhere, while you control a spirit monster, you get to draw a card. A pair of Yamato no Kami. This card's an interesting tech from way back when this deck was first started out. Unlike all the other spirit monsters up to this point, it can only be special summoned from the hand, and only by banishing a spirit out of your graveyard. And while it's on the field, if it were to destroy a monster in battle, you also get to destroy a spell trap. Then Hinokagu Tsuchi, the only 8-star normal summonable monster in this deck, and there's actually a good reason for that. I don't summon it very often. But when I do, it does have a good effect. If I manage to do battle damage with it, then my opponent drops all cards in their hand right before they draw on the next draw phase. Then there's the Chenault Baron Peacock. When it's ritual summoned, you can return up to 3 monsters your opponent controls back to their hand, and if you do, then you get to special summon any spirit from your hand, ignoring its summoning conditions, level 4 or lower. And when it returns to the hand, it leaves behind 2 tokens. That last part is also shared by the abilities of his sister, Chenault Baroness Peacock. Except that when she's summoned, you get to return up to 3 spell traps your opponent controls to the deck, and then special summon a spirit monster level 4 or lower from your deck. Next we move into the spell cards. First off is a pair of Creature Swap. Each player trades control of a monster they control, but each player gets to choose their own monster that they get to give up. Single Dark Hole, of course. Foolish Burial, which sends a monster from deck to grave. Normally my target will be Nikitama, because if you control a spirit, you get to draw a card. Pre-Preparation of Rites. Adding a ritual spell from your deck to your hand, and a monster whose name is listed on that ritual spell from your deck or graveyard to your hand. Chenault's Calling, which is the obvious target to Pre-Preparation of Rites. Allowing you to ritual summon Chenault Baron or Baroness, but here's the best part, you can banish spirits out of your graveyard as part of the cost. So if you happen to drop an 8-star monster with the effect of trade-in for 2 draws, you'd be able to use it for the entire ritual cost of a monster that would send cards your opponent controls off the field. And then double Twin Twisters, destroying up to 2 spell traps your opponent controls by discarding a card. Also just a way to discard the Nikitama. And now we finish the main deck off with the trap cards. Single Bottomless Trap Hole, staple in my decks. Double Jar of Avarice, slowly becoming a staple in a lot of my decks, returning any 5 cards except a copy of itself back to the deck to draw a card. Solemn Warning, staple in pretty much everyone's deck. Transmigration Prophecy, pretty much exclusively used to cycle the Jars of Avarice back into my deck, but I do use it sometimes to mess with my opponent's graveyard, if I get the opportunity. Torrential Tribute to replace the Dark Hole we lost. Next we move into the side deck. We have the additional copy of Amano Iwato, additional Shadowbird Crane, additional Izanami, additional Yamato no Kami, additional Hinokagusuchi, additional Creature Swap, a pair of MSTs, a Rank Up Magic 7th one, which you've seen in a couple of my other decks. When you draw it, you reveal it until your main phase 1, and then you activate it, letting you special summon any Xyz monster whose number is between 101 and 107, and then immediately ranking it up to its C form. Also a pair of Chenault Power Spot. All spirit monsters on the field gain 500 attack and defense, and if a wind attribute monster returns to the owner's hand, I get to search a spirit monster or a ritual spell from my deck to my hand. Compulsory, Double Fiendish Chain, and Mirror Force. And now we finish up with the extra deck. First off, we have a copy of number S0 Utopic Zexal. You can summon it by dropping a rank up spell from your hand and stacking it on top of a Utopia monster you control. Gains 1000 attack and defense for every material on it. Its summon is not able to be negated, and during your opponent's turn, you can detach a material. They cannot activate any cards or effects. They can only summon. That stuns out a lot of people. Also a single copy of Fairy Cheer Girl. You can attach a material to draw a card. Triple Utopia, since I'm running Utopic Zexal, obviously. We all know what it does. What most people probably don't know about, however, is number 104 Masquerade. It requires 3 level 4s, which isn't easy to summon, but not impossible. During either player's battle phase, when an opponent's monster activates its effect, you can attach a material to negate it, and if you do, you inflict 800 damage to your opponent. And once per turn, you get to mill the top card off your opponent's deck for whatever reason. That effect confuses me. We also have a C39 Utopia Ray, just a stack target on top of Utopia for an additional material later. But its ability isn't terrible. If you have 1000 points or less, you can detach a material from it to target an opponent's monster. This card gains 500 attack, and the opponent's monster loses 1000 attack. Then there's the S39 Utopia Prime. I stack this card on top of my Utopias more often than the C39. By triple detaching and paying life points until you're down to 10 points, you can banish all special summon monsters your opponent controls and deal them 300 damage for each. But you can only activate this if there's a 3,000 point gap between you and your opponents, and it's only if your opponent's points are higher than yours. And then we have C104, Umbral Horror Masquerade, which arguably has the most punishing effect out of any of the Cs over 100. When it's special summoned, you immediately get to destroy a spell trap, and during either player's turn, when a monster effect is activated on your opponent's side of the field, you can detach a material, negate that effect, send a card from your opponent's hand to the graveyard, and if you manage to do that, you have their life points. Then there's 2 number S39 Utopia the Lightning, the obvious reason you would run Utopia and Utopia Prime. Stack it on top of a Utopia monster, can't be used for Xyz summoning. When it battles, your opponent can't activate cards or effects, and you can double detach to make his attack points 5,000 until the end of the damage step. Then we have number 39, Utopia Beyond. Despite what a lot of people think, it is not difficult for me to naturally summon this card. When it succeeds summoned successfully, the attack of all your opponent's monsters becomes 0 permanently, and once per turn during either player's turn, I can detach a material from him, target a face of Xyz monster I control, and a Utopia in my grave. Banish the first target, special summon the second, and then gain 1250 in life points. Not the best effect ever, it's more just used for the reduction. And finally, 1 Utopic Dragon, the highest attacking monster in my extra deck, even though it's literally just as hard to summon as Utopic Zexal. You can stack it by discarding a rank up magic and putting it on top of a Utopia monster you control. Once per turn you can target a number monster in your grave and special summon it in defense, but its effects are negated. And during either player's turn, when a monster effect is activated that targets this specific card, I can detach a material from it to negate the activation and then destroy it, and it is not once per turn. And that's the deck. Spirits as an archetype has been slow since the day it was released, and back then it wasn't that big of a deal, but these days, spirits as an archetype are incredibly slow to the point where they have difficulty operating against most opponents. And the new spirit monster really does not fix that problem. What it does is it actually slows the opponents slightly, especially if they're hand trap heavy, and allows you to continue making your moves as much as you are possibly able to, until the point that you can easily earn your win. And I personally just have a lot of fun playing this deck. You'd be surprised how many people hate seeing Amino Iwato. I think I had one guy rage quit on me once. I thank you guys for watching the video, and if you can think of any way that I can improve this spirit deck, feel free to let me know. But in the meantime, this has been Nanashi, signing out.
What's the next stage? What's the next stage?